With the win tonight, the Capitals are back in a playoff position.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for more details. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about your Washington Capitals as they continue to keep rolling. How are they getting it done? I'll talk about that in the show a little bit later. We will talk about the big night for Alex Ovechkin. Yet a changed man after the All-Star break, a really slow start to the season, and is right back where I think we kind of had him pegged to start the season. We'll talk about that. And then a little bit later, we will talk about the youth infusion and how that is being led primarily by Hendrik Slop here. But just to get it going here, a huge win over the Calgary Flames. Huge win. The Capitals are sitting in a good position right now. Can you believe it, Capitals fans, that, let's say a month ago, if I would have told you that the Capitals were back in it, they are going to make it to the playoffs, they are going to be in the hunt, you would have laughed at me. I would have laughed at myself because that would have been a ridiculous thing to say. But how times have changed. You take a look at some of the teams out there that went crazy. They moved this player, that player. They made big acquisitions at the trade deadline just to try to stay in the hunt. And you take a look at the Capitals, they really did nothing. And they just have been reliant on their young talent and the veterans on the team just rising to the challenge. And as a Capitals fan, I'm really happy that we didn't mortgage the farm to get some players here as rentals. We're doing it with players within the organization. And tonight was another one of those nights as the Capitals continue to keep rolling. The Capitals down at the Flames by a score of 5-2, a chippy game, all things considered, at least in the beginning of the game, that the Flames definitely had a physicality to their game until Tom Wilson kind of had to skate in there and say, guys, if you want to fight someone, you're going to have to talk to the sheriff here. And as was apparent, things kind of went away after that. But it was a physical game to start off, but the Capitals controlled the pace and ultimately pick up another big win. The Capitals are coming off big wins over the Kraken and the Canucks after dropping 2 tough losses to the Jets and Oilers. The Capitals went 3-2-0 on their 5-game road trip, winning 3 straight games to improve to 33-25-9, good for 75 points on the season, defying odds. Proving all the insiders wrong that thought this was not going to be the year for the Capitals. Well, how does that taste when the Capitals tonight just keep rolling? The Capitals are back in a playoff position with 2 standing points. The Caps passed Detroit into wild card number 2. Lindgren was clutch again with 34 stops, and Carlson, a beast on the blue line, 4 blocked shots. But, there's no rest for the weary as the Capitals have another formidable opponent in the Toronto Maple Leafs. And just to take a look at the schedule, I know that the Capitals are doing well. I know they came off a big win, taking a look at what they did against the Canucks in the game tonight. But the schedule does not do them any favors. Let's just take a peek here. Wednesday, they take on the Maple Leafs. Friday, the Hurricanes. Another rematch with the Jets on Sunday, another rematch with the Red Wings on Tuesday, and then Thursday, another game with the Maple Leafs, and then Saturday against the Bruins. It's not going to be an easy schedule for the Capitals, but if there's any negativity with anyone that's watching this or listening, extinguish it, please, before we continue with the show, because the Capitals did the improbable in this last stretch of games by taking down huge opponents when nobody thought they were going to be able to do it. So I don't want to hear any negativity about the Capitals can't beat the Bruins. The Capitals can't take down the Red Wings. I think that it is possible. Is it going to be tough? Yes. I wouldn't have it any other way. But getting back to the game tonight, just one heck of a game for the Capitals. But I believe the Capitals are finding their identity and riding the wave of momentum. And they're doing it because, like I've always said, as the Capitals, as Alex Ovechkin goes, so go the Capitals. Huge night for Ovi and the Capitals. But there was a bit of, reason for concern in the game, as that Jensen left the game briefly. He came back, and Sandin, to be honest with you, when Sandin left, I thought we were going to be missing him for some time, but he came back. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what we find out tomorrow. Sometimes these injuries flare up, when the games are done, muscle injuries, those kind of things, that I hope he's good to go, because Rasmus Sandin has been clutch for the Capitals on the blue line, and Jensen had a great game tonight as well. Washington's power play also now has goals in 10 of the last 12. To say the Capitals are firing on all cylinders would be an understatement. Taking a look at Shucky Sideburns, making his 9th start in 10 games, Lindgren stopped 34 of 36. And to say he was under duress would be an understatement, but he stood to the challenge and kept the Capitals in here, continuing to do what the outlaw does best, make really great saves. And he did that. Some of those, I'm going to go ahead and say that a lot of other netminders within the NHL probably wouldn't have saved. And taking a look at what was key for, what was in the Capitals' secret sauce for tonight was the forecheck, and they applied pressure. And then they're getting, players stepping up. I talked about Sonny Milano. We need to see more from Sonny Milano before he left with his injury. Since his return, he has been nothing but just slaying it out there. Sonny Milano has 10 points in 13 games since returning from the upper body injury that held him out for over 2 months. So Sonny Milano, Mr. Clutch himself, stepping up and playing a big role. And then talking about Dylan Strome, and just wow. Again, most impressed about Dylan Strome. I knew that he was going to be good when he came to this team. I had no idea he was going to be this good. You got to think the Blackhawks have to be kicking themselves for not giving Dylan Strome a qualifying offer, but I don't want to think about it too much. Their loss has been the Capitals' gain. Tell me if you had Dylan Strome leading the team in goals before the season started, and I would say that you're crazy. And I want to see your receipts, because I don't believe it. Dylan has been the biggest and most consistent offensive driver for the Capitals this season, leading the team in goals. I mean, the proof's in the pudding there. Dylan Strome scores his team-leading 23rd goal of the season, and it gave the Capitals a 1-0 lead. That's what started it all. Strome has now scored 23 goals in 69 games in the month of March during his career, the most of any calendar month. So just paying off huge. Dylan Strome, again, a guy that came here, a name I was familiar with. You got to be thinking the Blackhawks were like, dudes, what did we do here? He's killing it for the Capitals. But again, I don't want to think about it too much. With his first period goal, Dylan Strome has tied his single season career high in goals back from the 2022-23 season at 23 goals in 81 games played. But talking about the game, the Flames did have some pushback in the third as Uyghur scored and started applying pressure. So briefly to start the third period, I'm like, uh-oh, guys, let's get into this. Let's remember what we're doing here. Let's play a 60-minute game. The wheels started to wobble a little bit, but luckily they were able to rein it in, and the Capitals picked up a decisive dub. Tom Wilson scores his 17th of the season to make it 5-2. Wilson has now scored 4 goals in his last 6 games, dating back to March 7th versus the Penguins. So the Capitals just playing huge tonight, a great team win. And let's hope they can keep it going. Let's hope this engine just keeps chugging down the road, because I'm impressed. Again, if anyone saw what the Capitals were doing to start this season, said, yeah, I kind of think this is how the season's going to go. Liars. I want to see your receipts. I don't believe it, but the Capitals are playing super clutch right now. And it's surprising. I didn't see this coming, especially when you factor in Alex Ovechkin's slow start. You take a look at the injuries, and it just seemed like the Capitals were down and out, losing, Kuznetsov and the players' assistance program, Nick Backstrom stepping away from hockey. I did not see this coming, but the Capitals are playing huge when they need to the most. All right, so coming up here after the break, it was another great evening for my captain, your captain, our captain, Alex Ovechkin. I'll discuss coming up. We're past the halfway point of the season. It's almost the end of the season, and regardless of where we are in the current standings, which is pretty good, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Now, let me tell you something, guys. I was not the kind of guy that was that big into fantasy sports until I found Sleeper. And let me tell you something now, I love it. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Capitals fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best MLB season preview, coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, be the first to get local insights from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, find it March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Capitals are slaying it right now. And how are they getting it done? It's part of the youth infusion, but it's also a part of the captain of the team, Alex Ovechkin, finding his game finally. And the Capitals are sitting pretty in a good position. And actually, I feel fairly confident about the remainder of the season. I don't think they're a shoo-in to win a Stanley Cup. I think it's going to be a battle, but that's okay. I would have it no other way. But I think that, this last stretch of games, we've seen what this team is made of, and their identity has come to the forefront. But talking about Ovi being super huge again tonight, I don't know if Alex Ovechkin found the fountain of youth in Dubai, but he's definitely found his game. He started with the slowest offensive season to date, but had a complete about face after the All-Star break. Now, he did, start the season good, scoring a lot, getting a lot of assists, those kind of things, but he was a little bit behind where he should be in the goal scoring department. And guess what? He went out there. He said, I forgot about hockey. I didn't think about hockey. I nothing hockeyed. And he came back and was a changed man. I did not see that coming. Ovechkin is the only player in NHL history to record 19 consecutive 20-goal seasons from the start of his career. Alex Ovechkin, despite his ups and downs, his ebbs and flows, continues to be one of the best to ever do it. And we get to watch it in our lifetime. Alex Ovechkin scores his 20th goal of the season. That extended the Capitals' lead to 2-0. Ovechkin is the 5th player in NHL history to reach the 20-goal mark 19 times, and only the 3rd to record 19 straight 20-goal seasons. Gordie Howe, 22, and Brendan Shanahan with 19. So in elite company and on the horizon is Wayne Gretzky. But between here and Gretzky, he continues to knock down all these other milestones along the way. Alex Ovechkin's power play goal marked his first career goal against Dustin Wolf, the 174th different goaltender Ovi has scored on in his career. Only Jaromir Jagr and Patrick Marleau have scored on more goaltenders in NHL history. Yet, I think that Alex Ovechkin will punch those out as well. Alex Ovechkin scores his second power play goal to extend the Capitals' lead to 3-0. Yes, when the Flames make stupid decisions and try to play tough guy, that means they're going to be sitting on the bench. That's fine. Alex Ovechkin will drive home the puck and make you pay, and he made him pay twice. It marks Ovechkin's 24th career game with multiple power play goals. Was hoping for the Hattie, didn't happen. That's okay. Ovechkin, who is now 1 goal shy of his 31st career hat trick, has 170 multi-goal games in his career. Only Wayne Gretzky has more multi-goal games in NHL history. So Alex Ovechkin just continuing to be, an all-star. When he was dismissed, when he was set aside by, he's past his prime, see all that gray hair coming in, he can't do it anymore. Just go to the retirement home, buddy. Not yet. He still has a lot of the answers for the Capitals, and I think that we have just seen the beginning, because one of the things that I know for sure is that when Alex Ovechkin gets going, look out. He will grab that bull by the horns and say, come on, guys, I take this team, and he will do it. And he does that by leadership, and he does it by scoring goals, and just a really great thing to witness. And it's a kind of bit of a Cinderella story. If you think about it, this team was down, but they weren't out. They found a way to persevere. And I think good things lie ahead. Again, to talk about what I talked about off the top, the schedule will not do the Capitals any favors, but they do have games in hand. And the teams that thought they were this, they thought they were that, the Detroit Red Wings, are faltering. And, not to say that they won't find their game, but I don't really care about what they do. I care about what the Capitals do and how the captain right back here, Alex Ovechkin, continues to knock it out of the park. That's what the Capitals are going to need. They're going to need his leadership, and then also the wild card, the hanging ball that, no one saw coming out there. An off-speed pitch that the best hitter in the world couldn't hit was the Capitals' youth infusion. No one anticipated that. No one, factored in Hendrix Lapierre. Who's that? Connor McMichael. Who's that? Ivan Miroshnichenko. Who's that? No one factored those players in. They should have, because those players have been game changers for the Capitals. Miroshnichenko had a couple of call-ups. This one is the one that he's really knocked it out of the park. Hendrix Lapierre has had multiple cups of coffee on the big team. This is the one that's going to stick. And I'll talk about him later in the show. That it's interesting that this, Capitals team led by Alex Ovechkin and John Carlson and Oshie and Wilson, but it's the young players coming along that are being really clutch for this team. And I'm going to say this, Capitals fans, hold on for the ride. It's going to be some highs and lows and bumpy rides, but this team right here is going to make it to the playoffs. Book it. And I hope you're all along for the ride. All right, so coming up here after the break, Hendrix Lapierre continues to just be a stud on the ice. How is he getting it done? I'll discuss coming up. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day the Capitals are rolling, and I'm happy that you are along for the ride on Locked On Capitals. I will be driving the ship for the Capitals on podcast form for the rest of the season. So subscribe, follow wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. But talking about Hendrix Lapierre, talking about the youth movement for the Capitals. There were some people that said, they should have done this years ago. I would have said that last season to Peter Laviolette, who just, didn't have the faith. And I think that, that there has been a change in directive from Brian McClellan that, in years past, it was trying to squeeze as much juice as we possibly can out of this Rock the Red era. But now it's changed. When Spencer Carberry came here, the youngest coach in the NHL, that he wanted to bring along some of the youth, that we don't need to always trade and get these players and that players. We have really elite talent within the organization. And if you don't know, maybe you don't know that the Hershey Bears won the Calder Cup last year, and some of those players are coming up huge for the Capitals on the big team. And one of those players in particular is Hendrik Lapierre, catching a lot of people. I knew he was going to be good. I had no idea he was going to be this good, but he continues to just impress on a big level here. To say Hendrik Lapierre's call-up is going well would be an understatement. Hendrik's had call-ups before, but I think this one is going to stick. I can't picture a scenario where he would get sent down again. I just don't. I mean, can you guys picture a scenario where Hendrik Lapierre gets sent down, being what kind of contributions he's got? So this team is changing, it's evolving, it's retooling on the fly. And I'm glad, in hindsight, that they didn't get crazy and do anything on the trade deadline, that they didn't give up some, key young players like they've done in the past, kick that can down the road for win now mode. Not so fast. We have some really great young talent within the organization. We as Caps fans have heard for the longest time that this team needs to get younger, and youth of the team are showing up clutch night after night. Tonight was no exception. Hendrik Lapierre scores his 8th goal of this season to extend Washington's lead to 4-1, and has now recorded 8 points, 6 goals, 2 assists in his last 11 games. Huge. Hendrik Lapierre has been huge on this team, and again, I love it. I love this team getting younger and seeing these players that we've heard marinating down in Hershey for the longest time. They're saying, take me out of the crock pot. I'm ready to go. Lapierre's 8 points since February 26th. Now get this, guys. Lapierre's 8 points since February 26th rank 3rd among NHL rookies, trailing only Chicago's Connor Bedard and Dallas's Logan Stankoven. So quite impressive and elite company for Hendrik Lapierre. When you can be mentioned in the same sentence as Connor Bedard, that is quite stunning. First overall pick, so to even be, in that same sentence, in that same conversation is huge. And again, one of the players that I think the Capitals had question marks on, because like I said, he had multiple cups of coffee up on the big team. And oftentimes, it wasn't sustainable pressure. JJ Regan was one of my first interviews back when he worked for NBC Sports Washington. And I talked about his first call-up or second call-up. And he said, he played good, but his scoring isn't sustainable. And it wasn't back then. But like I said, and, I say this, I say it, and I think some people think it's like kind of a crazy thing to say, but a lot of those players that went to the Calder Cup went in as boys and left as men, because you take a look at that Calder Cup push that put the Bears through their paces. They were tested at every single level, and they rose above, and they won the ultimate prize in the American Hockey League. And I think that experience was invaluable for guys like Hendrik Lapierre, Connor McMichael, Protas, etc., that they came here men on a mission and have just been key contributors and just really huge for this team. I got to say, it's fun hockey to watch right now for the Capitals. There's been points this season that, I'm like, I don't even really want to watch this game because I know how it's going to end. But it's gelling, and it was an accident. I mean, make no mistake about it. These call-ups, it was based on necessity. Players got injured. Players went to the players' assistance program. They called players up. Not something I think that was in the master plan, but it was based on necessity, and I think they got lucky. I think Brian McClellan got lucky, Spencer Carberry, they caught lightning in a bottle, that they called up these players based on injury and for whatever reason, Nick Backstrom stepping away from hockey, bumped Connor McMichael, fast-tracked him, that this team is playing really well and by surprise. And it's something that a lot of people have spoke of for the longest time. They need to get younger and faster, and they're doing it now. and it's paying off in spades as this Capitals team is slaying it. And, you know, in this whole conversation, in this podcast, I don't want to forget about obviously what Ovechkin and Strome and Wilson and Carlson and Oshie and all these guys, of course, they're huge. I know that, but those are the guys that we always talk about. It's kind of still the young guys are still having to prove themselves, but slowly you can kind of see, you know, Ovi and the players around them warm up that they're not just the young, you know, kid on the team anymore, that they're teammates, that Henrik Slottier can look at Alex Ovechkin and go, we're teammates. I'm not just this young player anymore that's gushing over you. I'm your teammate. I'm an equal with you. We're playing on the same team. We're pulling on the same rope together. And that's getting the Capitals team to win games. And it's got to be a cool moment for a lot of those young guys like him and even Miroshnichenko, that, you know, another guy that idolized Alex Ovechkin, that, you know, seeing them as equals. And it's got to be a proud moment for Ovi as well to see Lapierre and all these young guys that, you know, have been around the organization, you know, at training camps, preseason games, that they're finally coming along. So excitement surrounds the Capitals organization. It surrounds the Locked On Capitals podcast. And make sure and do subscribe and follow, as I will have you guys covered every step of the way on what I think is going to be a historic push for this team. And I hope you're along for the ride. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel. Check it out, available on the free channels app on Amazon. I think you will love it. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holney, and I'll talk to you again next time.